Welcome to the Eastern Music Festivals Behind the Baton. This is Gerard Schwarz speaking to you from Miami. And I'm talking to one of the great musicians of our time, one of the great violas, one of my dearest friends, Chauncey Patterson, who has been an inspiration to me in so many ways. He is such a great leader, such a gorgeous chamber music player, such a thoughtful musician. His background that most of you know is he was principal viola both in Denver and in Buffalo. He was for 15 years a member of the award-winning Miami String Quartet. He plays principal viola in the Palm Beach Symphony and the Florida Grand Opera, teaches at Lynn Conservatory at Lynn University in Florida, plays in the Bergonzi String Quartet. That's just in his spare time. And Chauncey, where are you talking to us from?
I'm talking to you from my hometown, my studio, private studio behind my mom's house in Burlington, North Carolina.
Wow.
Where I grew up, yeah.
So for EMF, I mean, you are a North Carolina person. So it's best that you had come to a North Carolina festival. So tell us about your early years at Eastern.
Oh, man, Eastern Music Festival. In fact, I've been thinking about it a lot being back here because, I grew up, was born in the 60s in North Carolina. In fact, the festival was started the same year I was born. And I joke to people, only my closest friends that Shelley started the festival for me because we're the same age. And when I first went to Eastern Music Festival, I was just blown away by how different it was. It was 28 miles from my hometown, but it may as well have been 28,000 miles away. My town, I grew up, I came of age in the 70s, and all the racial strife and the segregation. I grew up in a segregated town, and that weighed heavily on me as a child from the age of 8 when we had the riots here. I remember that as a kid. I remember many things. My mom is surprised that I remember the donut shop that all the African Americans in town had decided to boycott because they still would not allow blacks to come in the front door. You had to go to the back door, but they had really good donuts. So my aunt would come over and convince my mom, hey, let's go over and get some donuts. And they took me once. My mom said, you must have been 4 or 5 years old. I said, I know, Mom, but I remember it. Every time I drive by the place here in town, I remember that. But when I finally went to EMF, I saw the musical community, and I saw that it was nothing like that. There weren't black kids and white kids separating themselves in the cafeteria. My best friends were from New York. They're still good friends of mine. Peter Sanders was in the New York City Ballet, along with Ron Wasserman, a bass player in the New York City Ballet, and Jose Segura, who's a social worker. These are my best friends. And I think I was a student there for 6 years, and the saddest day of the year was the last day of the festival. And I don't know why I would do this to myself, but I would stay there until everybody left. And I'd walk the halls. I'm almost going to start crying talking about it. It would be empty and all the trash in the halls and everything. And I couldn't wait for the next year for Eastern Music Festival. I couldn't wait till they sent me the catalog. I'd get the catalog in October maybe or something. I'd get so excited. And every day was like, I can't wait till June. I can't wait till June. And when June came, I'd be the first one. As soon as they opened the doors, I'd be the first one there waiting to welcome everybody. And it was just such a relief for me, aside from the musical aspect, which is, of course, I heard Leonard Rose for the first time, and heard all these great musical pieces. I remember the first time I heard Saint-Saëns' Third Symphony, the Organ Symphony. I remember the feeling I had. And now, to this day, when I hear certain things, I remember I heard them at EMF the first time. And I found like I found my community. It's like, oh, the whole world isn't like where I grew up. This is my world. And I still have that love in my heart from EMF to this day.
What a touching story. And how old were you when you first went, Chauncey?
Let me see. I would have been in the 9th grade when I first went, however old that is. I started at 8 years old here in the public school system here. There's another story with that. In light of all the social things that are going on now, I've been thinking about that. There had not been, as I mentioned, I lived in a segregated town. There had not been a string program on this side of the tracks, so to speak. And these 2 hippies came in to take over the string program in Burlington. The previous guy had retired. And they were came from East Carolina University, education majors, and they were coming back to start not to continue the program, but to reinvigorate it as well. And they asked, he came to our concert, Scott Walker came to our last concert last summer, and he surprised me. I hadn't seen him in years.
Wow.
And he and his wife were hippies and, fought the Vietnam War and everything. They came to town, and they they asked, well, why aren't we offering strings all over the city? It's just on this. And he said the answer they got was, those people over there don't care about that kind of music. And he was like, no, that's ridiculous. So he started the string program. We brought it over to our side of town. Had it not been for that, Jerry, I might not be playing the viola. And I've thanked him many times. Every year I thank him 2 or 3 times for it. And that's how I started, because that person came here and decided, no, let's offer this to everybody. And that's how I started the viola at 8 years old. But I entered EMF in the 9th grade with my first song, 1977. The year of the New York City blackout, I remember because all my buddies from New York, when we were listening to the radio, they were talking about it. So that's how I can vividly remember that, 1977.
Isn't that, now how has, I mean, that's just an inspirational story. Well, you're an inspirational guy anyway. You always have been. How has EMF changed from 1977 until now?
You know, it's amazing. It hasn't changed that much. It really hasn't. You know, Dana still smells the same. You know, the dorms, I guess they're going to have new dorms next year, but Milner is the same, except they have air conditioning now. So that's a big difference. It's a lot. You've got us really busy, so it's a lot more vigorous festival. There are 2 chambers of concerts now. So if anything, it's gotten better. It says, you know, that's the only thing it's happened. It's gotten more vigorous and more festive, I guess is the word, because there's something going on all the time. And I got to tell you, I'm always impressed that you're at everything, Jerry. I'm always amazed that you're at everything, every master class, every recital, and I'm very impressed with that. And it gives us that energy to do all the work we do. There are more concerts. It's just, if anything, it's more exciting than ever before, without a doubt. But it hasn't changed much. A lot is still there. We could swim in the lake back then. That's a big difference. But little things like that have changed, yeah.
Why can't we swim in the lake anymore?
It got, you know, I was there the summer they stopped us. One of the female students cut her foot on a piece of glass at the bottom of the lake. They decided no more. No, we can't do it anymore. But my first few years there, we would go down the lake. There was a little barge out in the middle you could dive off of, and yeah, we used to do it all the time. Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy that it hasn't changed that much, because yes, there's more activity, there are more concerts, and it's a little bigger and so forth and so on, and more specialized intensives. But Shelley's idea about the teaching and the orchestra and being an orchestra place pretty much has remained the same. And when I came, I was just so happy to embrace his way. And I, it's very exciting. And then, of course, to have people like you and Jeff Moulter and Neil Carey and a few others who've been there for so many years, who bring that sense of tradition. Now, was Jeff a student when you were a student?
Absolutely, we were students together back then, and it's so funny you mentioned that. I hope I'm not talking too much, but
never.
Jeff, the way I was there on the faculty for a while. And then when I joined the Miami String Quartet, I had to leave because the summer season, as you know, for chamber musicians, is the big season. That's when we travel and play, Santa Fe and Chamber Music Northwest and all that stuff. And after I left the quartet, I resigned, and I was very sad. There's a whole other story to that. Really glad I did it. Wouldn't change it for anything in the world, because I wouldn't be doing now what I'm doing. I learned so much from being in the quartet, from the other members and the experiences we had. But I was sitting here, right here in my studio, just really depressed and really down, didn't know what direction to take next. I was a little disillusioned about many things in life and in music. And I saw your special on PBS. They did about the 2 festivals, Brevard and EMF. And they talked about it, the history of it, and it was unbelievable. I sat here and watched it, and they spoke to Jeff. And I knew I was here this summer, and I knew having EMF was going on, but I was so low that I didn't even want to listen to music. I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to watch TV or movies or anything. And I saw that, and it inspired me so much that I called Jeff. I called Jeff up. I said, Jeff, what do I have to do to get back into EMF? And then, nature took its course after that, and I was so happy. But yeah, Jeff and I were there together. We played together a lot, and I love sitting in the orchestra and looking across at Jeff, and especially playing chamber music with him. It just means so much for me to be back at EMF. It really has a special place. Everybody knows I love EMF. In fact, when I was a student, some of my teachers would suggest, you should go to Meadowmount or the quartet program, and I was like, no way. I'm going back to EMF. I went as long as I possibly could. And I'd spend as much time. I'd live there year-round. I used to wish that it was a year-round program when I was a student there, because I loved it so much. Really, I really did. Yeah.
What a great thrill for us to have you there. And what a great thrill for me to have you, and to have you here in Miami too, so we can hang out sometimes, which
That's
is
so great. We're together year round now, Jerry.
really important to me.
Yeah,
And then I get
awesome.
to hear you as the principal viola in Palm Beach Symphony. And that, it's just like to have a musician of your caliber to be working with as a colleague. It doesn't happen that often. You would think as a
No,
conductor
I feel
time, but it really doesn't. It's just, now tell me,
I feel very fortunate in my life.
how do you, I know you do a lot of teaching. You do a lot of teaching now
Yeah.
at the conservatory and everywhere, but when you're teaching at EMF, it's a 5-week stint. That's it. You're not teaching kids for 30 weeks. You're not going to, I assume, change their bow arm or change the way they hold their viola. How do you focus on teaching for the short time?
That's a really good question, Jerry, and that's kind of evolved over the years. It took me a while to figure that out. The first years I was teaching at EMF, I kind of, I didn't know what else to do except to start from the beginning and do what my teachers all did for me. And then I realized, you're right, it's not enough time to do that. Some people try to address that sort of thing, but I don't think that's really the most beneficial. I try to instill, discipline in them for one thing, consistency, and love for music. It sounds kind of vague, but really love for music and critical listening. I think that's the best thing I can do for myself and for them or any musician, is to teach them how to listen critically to the concerts they attend, and to the way they're playing, and really listen to. Most musicians, they don't realize how difficult it is to really hear what you're really playing. I mean, it sounds simple, but to really hear what's really coming out is a skill that you gain over years. And I really try to stress that. I try to make sure that they're really hearing what's coming out, not assuming what's coming out is what they want to come out. So that's what I would like to focus on. And to them to go to attend all the concerts, to hear as much music as possible, and to go to as many master classes as possible, as you told me about, because I'm always amazed at your knowledge of string music. I think that's one of the first conversations we had, that you know about bow use and bow speed and what part of the bow to play things in. I love your bowings and things like that. And you said to me, it's simple. I go to master classes and I learn. And that's stuck in my head. And I say that to many students, many of my students at Lynn. I share that story with them about your string and how you listen to everything. Go to piano master classes, go to everything. It's such a wealth at EMF. And then I talk to them about it, so that's a lot of our lessons. They play things for me. We prepare a repertoire, of course. We prepare them for their auditions they have to play in the fall. But it's all about music, really, about music and phrasing and listening.
Well, what's interesting about that, when people think about conducting, they think about, well, you're a conductor, oh yes, and they start waving their hand as if that's what matters. And you and I both know that it's all about listening. That's
Absolutely.
You have to hear everything. And then you have to digest what you hear, and you have to absorb it and then comment on it or not. But
right.
It's really not about waving your, yeah, sure, of course, we do talk about waving your hands, but the key is and as an orchestral player, you sit up front, so you get to hear everything that I hear, and you can hear what's wrong, you can hear what's right. And as an orchestral player, you're sitting there evaluating, so you know what direction to go in. I mean, it's just the most exciting life.
Yeah.
And chamber
it really
is very much like that, but with even more detail, even more thoughtfulness. And playing 15 years in a quartet, I mean, that's a long time. Working with, did you have many personnel changes during those years?
No, in those 15 years, we had one personnel change early on within the first 5 years. Our first violinist, Felicia Moy, decided that it was just too much for her. She come from the San Francisco Symphony, and it was really demanding, and especially being a first violinist in a quartet is very demanding. She had some physical problems because of it. She had them before she joined the quartet. It just became too much for her. But in those 15 years, for the better part of 15 years, we were a unit. We stayed together, and we were maturing as any group does. And I miss it. I still have dreams about it, Jerry. It's not bad dreams, not the bad stuff. No, I mean, I could count the number of dreams I've had where there's been any kind of conflict. Just last night, I had another one. And at first, when I first left, I found them aggravating because I was trying to move on. And I felt like it was keeping me from moving on. And now I wake up and I just smile about them because they're all, they're all pleasant. They're all pleasant, not always about music making, about being in the airport. waiting for the rental car, you know, no room service, driving around town looking for someplace to eat or something like that. And it was wonderful. I learned so much from those guys. I really, really did. And it's the basis of my teaching. I can honestly say my students in my chambers group said, Lynn, they know all the members of the quartet by name because I mentioned them all the time. Ivan would say this about the bow. That's where I learned a lot about the bow. I learned it from Bob Vernon and Michael Tree. But Ivan Chan had such a great use of the bow and his knowledge of the bow. And vibrato, I learned a lot about vibrato. Certain vibratos I couldn't do. And then I just started watching him, and it really affected my left-hand sound. The right-hand sound I learned from Michael Tree and Bob Vernon, but the left-hand stuff I really got from him. And Keith Robinson, the cellist, just his work ethic and his rhythmic vitality. I just learned so much from those guys. I really did. I treasure those years. I really did.
That's extraordinary. Now, tell me, you had a personal relationship too when you were a student at EMF.
With Naomi. Is that what you're speaking of?
Naomi.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's it. We talk about all the time that we got to share a stand that summer. They put us together on Beethoven 9 with Robert Shaw. And that's been we reunited about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's been amazing. I was just talking to her. She sends her love to Bisha. I said, I don't know if it's going to be appropriate, but now it is. You broached the subject. So she says, please tell Jerry I wish I was there making music with him, and I love him and I miss him, and I can't wait to make music again. And that's been wonderful. She just started a community arts program at a Kolami Synagogue in Westchester. She's the director, and she's doing great. And music has brought us together, and we've stayed together.
Naomi is also a member of our faculty. So
yes, Naomi's a member of the faculty as well, and
we got Chauncey.
Wonderful. Yeah, she was there. You know, she didn't go every year. We met in 1979.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. I'm just thrilled to be there. Very sorry we're missing this summer. We're looking forward to the future. But yeah, we met in 1979. I'd already been there a few years by that point. She's got a great picture of us. I think she sent it to you. Of us on the wall at Milner with me with my big afro. It's almost getting that big again. I was a lot thinner then because I was playing tennis a lot in those days. But I look at that often. It just makes me smile. It really does.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great relationships at EMF that lasted for a long time. Still, Peter Sanders and I in the New York City Ballet and Ron Wasserman, we still speak. You know, it was just a huge influence on my life, and it just set the course for so many things. I remember playing for Lillian Fuchs there in a master class, for instance, playing Bach for her, and I'm pretty short, and I remember it's a vivid memory of me playing Bach. And I swear she walked under my elbow to correct my arm. That's how short she was. But I just remember so many. I have millions of memories. Of Beethoven 9, Tchaikovsky 4, the first time I played it. Hearing Shostakovich 10 for the first time. Just so many things, man. It's just, I could go on and on. I really could.
Well, Chauncey, you are one of the most special people I've ever known. One of the joys of being at EMF every year. And we love you, and I love you, and I thank you so much for this time. And I'm sorry we're not going to be together this summer, but we're already thinking about 2021, and then of course I'll see you in Miami. And thanks again so much for doing this.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much for having me. I feel just so grateful for being able to play under you and the way you're running the EMF, and I just can't thank you enough. I'm so glad we're together in Miami. I'm looking forward to making music with you. I can't wait to get on stage again with you. I really can't. Thanks for having me for this. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Chauncey. All my love.
All right. Take care. Bye.